All right, Sim,
Hi guys.
take it away.
Okay. Okay. Hi guys. Yeah, like Iman said, we both started performing stand-up comedy at the same time. So that was quite a few years ago. So I have been performing stand-up comedy for a long time, and I remember actually the first time that I performed, and it was probably the most memorable set that I've ever done. Is like that first time I performed because it was the first time is always magical, right? First time you do anything, and I was lucky in that I did well, and I performed my set. I memorized it. I rehearsed it. I wrote it. I memorized it a few times, and then when I performed it, uh, and I got laughs from it, I felt I felt like, wow, this is so special. This is like it's like I didn't know whether like all these funny thoughts that I had were just me or whether other people were also feeling it too, right? And then when they were laughing, I just felt like this is like I'm not alone anymore. You know what I mean? So like it was so special to me. And then so now I've been doing it for a while, and I always encourage people to do stand-up comedy. If anybody wants to try stand-up comedy, I would encourage everybody to try it. You know, find an open mic, get on the stage, or write a set. You know, write some jokes that you think are funny or some thoughts that are funny, and go and try it out. You know, but uh, my only advice is maybe don't call yourself a stand-up comedian just yet after your first performance at an open mic, because I realized this very early on in my in stand-up comedy, because like very early on I realized like all these more uh, comedians who are more established, they were kind of like not liking it when people were calling themselves comedians after one or two performances. They were like, I remember this one time this comedian was like writing something on Facebook saying like, what's up with all these new young open micers? You know, they do one show and then one or two shows, and then they call themselves comedians, and then they have a Facebook comedy page, and then they have like a they have a comedy blog. And so I was like, yeah, what is up with all these young new comedians who are coming in, open micers are coming in and calling themselves comedians, right? I was kind of like, yeah, that's like I kind of like I felt the same way. And then I thought, wait a minute, I have a comedy blog, you know, and I have a and I have a comedy Facebook page. Maybe they're talking about me, you know. And then I was like, nah, they're not talking about me. They're talking about the other guys who are newer than me. I've done like two comedy shows, two open mic comedy shows. They're not talking about me. So I was kind of like in denial. And then I was like, nah, I'm a comedian. They're not talking about me. And then one day I kind of like I couldn't deny it anymore, because this was what happened one day. I was hanging out with a group of comedians, and I was introduced to a comedian who was visiting from India. And this was the way that we were all introduced. Like we were all standing in line, and this comedian that knew the visiting comedian was introducing us. And he was like, um, the, the, the visiting comedian from India, his name was Papa CJ. So it's like, okay, Papa CJ, you know Harith. Harith is a very famous comedian, local comedian. Uh, and you know Kavin. Kavin is a comedian. And you know Rizal. Rizal is a comedian. And this is Kavin. He's a comedian. Rizal is a comedian. And this is Sim. He does comedy. And I was like, what? One of these introductions is not the same as the others, you know? So I was like, wait a minute. That means I'm not a comedian. So I was like, okay, well, screw this guy. I'm a comedian, right? I was still kind of like that. I was indignant. And so for a while there, I was just indignant. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to prove to him, I'm going to prove to everyone that I am a comedian, you know? And so that was my focus at that time. I was like, okay, I was trying everything. I was desperate, right? I was trying everything to be funny. I was like just going in all directions with my comedy at the same time. I was taking in all sorts of gigs. I was just like, at one point I was like, okay, I was trying like absurdist comedy, and then at the same time I would mix it in with like serious stories. I would be telling a story like that is pretty real about myself, about my wife, and then in the middle of it there'd be a talking dog. So none of it made sense, and so I was trying all these things, and I was like, I wasn't really getting the laughs that I was getting earlier, and I was like, what am I? What's happening here? And then I was taking in all these gigs, and one of the gigs that I took, I remember, was actually the worst time I ever bombed, because it was this place. There was this job to perform at this bar, and I took it, and the host was getting no laugh. So already we knew that this room was not ideal, and the crowd was, not the hottest crowd ever. And then I was like, never mind, I'm gonna get them. I'm gonna do my set. I have jokes, right? Jokes are gonna work. So I did my jokes, and at first I was like getting the crowd a little bit. They were starting to chuckle and they were starting to laugh. I'm like, it's working. And then there was this distraction because this waiter came in, and he was opening this cabinet by the side, and so he was just blocking the stage, and he was pulling the cabinet door to get out this bottle of alcoholic drinks that belong to some of the regular customers there. And so he made this screeching noise, and he was blocking the stage, and I was like ducking down to perform under his armpit and just trying to continue with the show. But I didn't know how to deal with the interruption, so I was just trying to get through it. And then I lost the crowd, and then like I was like, okay, never mind. I'm getting to the part of my set where I'm getting into the dirty jokes, and usually the dirty jokes work very well. But because I had lost the crowd were not into it at all. So I went into the dirty jokes. The crowd was kind of creeped out, And then there was even one lady who said, "That's offensive," and I was like, "What? Okay, I guess I won't do that joke anymore." She's like, "You're right. You shouldn't." And I was like, you know what? You're not gonna like the rest of my set. And the worst thing was like I couldn't even leave that place because like I was hanging out with the comedians, and the place we were sitting was right beside the stage. So I had to go back to like that part of the side of the stage, kind of like the green room area, and I just hid there for like the rest of the show. And that was like the worst I ever bombed, and I was like, I don't know if this comedy thing is for me. I think that guy was right. I'm not a comedian. I'm just some guy trying to do comedy. I'm just, And so I was like, okay, I'm not gonna do comedy. I'm not gonna try being a comedian. And this is not me. I'm not a comedian. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna quit. But at the same time, after I did that, I felt like this relief. And all of a sudden, it was like I started seeing everything as funny again, like the jokes were just coming in to me. Like I felt, what's happening here? Is the universe playing a trick on me? Like just as I said, I want to quit, like all the jokes are coming back. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm not gonna bother with whether I am a comedian or whether I'm not a comedian. I'm just gonna take it one step at a time, right? I'm just gonna say, I'm just gonna do the jokes, right? Because even if I wanted to quit, I couldn't because I was so compelled. I was feeling like, I have to find out if this joke works, right? How am I doing for time, Iman?
For time?
Yeah. Am I
Um,
way over already?
don't worry about it. It's fine. Finish
Okay.
the story. Finish the story.
On with the story.
We're all
All
invested.
right.
Be a comedian.
Okay. Yeah. So I was like, okay. So these jokes are coming in, and I'm like, I have to find out if these jokes work. I felt really compelled. Like this is like I cannot sleep if I don't find out if these jokes work, right? So I was like, okay, I'll still go to the open mics. I'll still try the jokes. And as I was doing that, I was getting more and more gigs, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'll just keep doing this until I can't do it anymore. So just one step at a time, I was doing that, and then I realized like, actually, this is what I wanted in the first place. I didn't want to be a comedian. I just wanted to do comedy. This was what drew me in the first place. And I was like, there's no value in being. There's like doing is more important than being, right? Like there's no point in me calling myself a comedian doesn't do anything to the world, doesn't change anything. It's when I do the comedy, that's when like people, um, like people will laugh, people will, get something out of it. I feel like that affects more change in the world. So since then, everything that I've done since then has been um, focused on doing rather than being. And as a side note, the guy who introduced me as Sim also does comedy. He and I have always been good friends, and nowadays he introduces me as a comedian. But that's not important. Anyway, thanks for listening to my story. That was the end of it.